is May 27th of 2026. Hope everyone's having themselves a good day. We made it halfway through the week. It's kind of been a shorter week since Memorial Day. But we have a lot to talk about, and there's actually we didn't get to all the conversations yesterday. So we didn't get a chance to talk about WWE Raw. We didn't get a chance to talk about their stories. So that's something that we look forward to doing. Plus, we have new developing details about an incident with one of the WWE superstars over the last few weeks. But I want to start our conversations in the direction and talk a little bit of football for you guys. Some college football in the midst of everything. And this article, I'm just going to read it through you. It's found on CBSSports.com. And I feel like this is important. I was reading a little bit of it before the show. The article is written by Brandon Marcello and it's titled End of Cupcake Weekend for SEC. Conference eliminates traditional late season game versus inferior teams. And from what I'm taking of this article, basically talks about how they play inferior FCE or lower tier FBS opponents before their typical rivalry games on the final week of the season. And according to SEC's Commissioner Greg Sankey, he joked saying that it was the end of the Cupcake Weekend. We never got that one sponsored, though. And so basically, SCE is restructuring their games to just eliminate a lower tier opponent in the midst of the regular season. Now, over the past several years, if you have been oblivious to college football, there's been a huge shift in restructuring a lot of these conferences. It also coincides with expanding the college football playoffs. At one point, it was just two teams, the best of the best, playing each other. Then there were four, and now there is 12 and 16, expanding to 24 games. And for on a maybe financial service, I personally believe that there is some pros and cons that people do not like about the expansion of the college football playoffs. As a fan who loves college football, I've taken a passion of watching college football over the last 5 years. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not educated as enough as anyone else. So this is just strictly through my experience. College sports in general obtain a complicated measure for me to follow. I don't want to just follow teams in my conference that I live in. I don't want to just follow teams on the top 25 ranked. I want to follow everybody to the best of my ability. Kentucky Wildcats, Cincinnati Bearcats are in two different conferences. Me being from San Diego, I also support the Aztecs. They are in a different conference alone. But I oppose to expanding the college football playoffs so that more teams have the ability in different parts, in different conferences, to showcase what they got. Over the years, I have been upset with how the bowl games schedule and opponents and the importance have been played out. My breaking point was last December when Cincinnati Bearcats was in a bowl game. It's hard to support a bowl game when no one's playing for anything, therefore people back out and you don't get a true sense of what that team did all year long to earn an opportunity into the program in bowl game. So how do we fix that? Well, one of my solutions to that problem is make every bowl game valued. When they expanded the college football playoffs, you utilize more bowl games, associating them to the college football playoffs. Now you expand to 24 teams. You have to push back and have playoffs start earlier in December, which I'm fine by. It creates more importance and interest of these bowl games now in the month of December. So for those who just got selected to a bowl game and the only people watching it has to be the fans primarily of those bowl games or teams, now you have opened it up because now football is going to be watched by everybody. What does this do to the regular season? Well, you still need to emphasize that the regular season's the regular season. Now you also have to emphasize that there's a championship game played in every conference. So you still need to have a regular season followed by a championship weekend for all conferences before heading into any bowl games, in which now more of it early on is going to include playoffs. You cut out any unnecessary games in between. Now we go back to the regular season, which means because we are shifting the conferences and teams are moving over left and right, what you have to do is you have to eliminate unnecessary games. And that is where I believe college football is going to struggle with, because a lot of these FCS teams and and lower tier FBS opponents rely on schedules where they throw in a Florida or an Alabama or a Georgia. It kind of just brings it all together, right? But as a fan who does not understand it, I'm going to tell you a lot of people who do not understand that concept can't live to the expectation that we have to keep that in the system. As a fan, if you want to draw interest to me, especially in the months of December where, playoff implications are opposed in the NFL. And sure, I think when NFL is trying to change the narrative of having Saturday games consumed during playoff time for NCAA football, then you got to make every game, every scenario impactful. So when I read this article that you can read on CBS about the SEC voting to eliminate that second to last game of the season, that's a little bit of a break where they go play a team that doesn't really, it should be an easy win, right? In the FCS or the lower till FBS teams, making them that every team is crucial. I really do believe that we have moved to the regular season, conference championships, maybe a week by, and then we will get our playoffs started. And as a fan, I don't have an issue with that. A lot of teams, a lot of programs don't like that, and I understand. And I can't, I guess you can't please everybody. Now, last thing I'll add on to this segment, and it is in relation, has to go back to the transfer portal. If you are in a bowl game, if you play for a team in 2026, it doesn't matter after the regular season, after the conference championships, what games you are scheduled to after that in that process. you should be required, as long as you're healthy, you're not injured, to play in those games. So if there's a meaningless bowl game, you should represent your current team to play before available to be transferred or select a different team. That is one thing that was a breaking point for me, and it's very difficult to support any player, any organization, NCAA football alone until that gets resolved. And I don't think that that gets resolved in my books. The only way I say that is that you can't, eligibility for transfer should not take place until after the NCAA championship game. So the college football shakeups continue. It's going to be for good and for worse, but we continue. Well, NFL and Aaron Rodgers has decided to come back for one more year to take on play with the Pittsburgh Steelers in his final attempt to win himself a Super Bowl. Now, there's a lot of things that you want to see this happen. First of all, Aaron Rodgers, to me, first round ballot Hall of Famer. Appreciate him. Has left a legacy with Green Bay. He's held his own with Pittsburgh, and I would love to see nothing but success. It's I'm paying respects to the people who have deserved to be here at the end of their careers. Okay. I appreciate his notion of saying I'm retiring at the end of the season. Now, hopefully that is the case. All right. I hate the people who say I'm retiring and then come back. Yes, I'll even point out I don't like the idea. Brock Lesnar never officially said at WrestleMania 42 that he retired. I think there was a promo that he cut out that said that he was retiring. But if that's the indication, I don't like the whole retire then come back scenario. If you're going to retire, retire. Walk out into the sunset, whatever that means necessary. And with that being said, Aaron Rodgers has an opportunity to come into this season with the Steelers, win a division, make it back to the Super Bowl. It's a long shot because the AFC North is stacked right now. And, the Ravens are fighting for the same spot, and the Bengals have a valid case for a playoff run this year. But Aaron Rodgers has a opportunity to become a rare quarterback among elites to beat every team in the NFL. What do you mean? Well, let me break that down to you. The only selective players have been able to beat all 32 teams in the NFL throughout their list, right? Since 2026, only Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, and Brett Favre has been able to beat all 32 teams. That means that Tom Brady played with the Patriots, moved over to Tampa Bay, beat the Patriots. Peyton Manning played with the Colts. He moved over to Denver, beat the Colts. Brees played with the Chargers, beat the Saints, moved over to the New Orleans and beat the Chargers. Brett Favre played for the Packers, moved over to the Jets and then over to Minnesota and beaten the Packers. Montana and Frank Tarkenson are kind of in that club as well. They never got a chance to beat all 32 teams, but they did record at least one win against 28 teams that exist during their careers. So they're kind of considered into it. Aaron Rodgers has an opportunity to join this elite list, and he should join this elite list, but it's a rare possibility, and circumstances are going to have to work in his favor. Well, this is how the circumstance works. Aaron Rodgers has to beat the Green Bay Packers. He faced them a while back. Forgot when exactly to the date, but he ended up losing like 35-21 or something like that the last time they faced. Well, in order to meet the Packers again, both the Packers and the Steelers are going to have to go to the Super Bowl. They're in two different conferences, which is great, provides an equal opportunity, but the Packers are going to have to go to the Super Bowl along with the Steelers, okay? in order for that opportunity to present itself. So it's a long shot, but it's still a possibility. Last time the Packers met Green Bay was in 2025. Packers came out on top 35-25. Rodgers got to outplay Jordan Love, who threw 360 yards and 3 touchdowns, while the MVP finished with 219 yards and scored 2 touchdowns. Unfortunately, Rodgers, that opportunity is presentable. So, can Aaron Rodgers make that rare QB historical value? Uh, Unlikely, but just the fact that the presence is there for me, it's good enough. Moving right along, let's jump down into Cincinnati sports. Let's talk about the emphasis of Dexter Lawrence. He got picked up into this. He was traded from the New York Jets to the Bengals in exchange for the 10th number one overall pick of the NFL draft. Well, Dexter Lawrence has been brought in as a defensive tackle. All right. We know his success. We know his veteranship that he provides to the table. Well, it also provides leadership, embracing into the young group of guys. A couple of things that he's immediately worked on with Shamar Stewart, which I think is great. Now we talk about the linebackers. He's working with secondaries and even the cornerbacks as well. Dexter Lawrence is just taking on this embracement as the leadership role of the Bengals defense, and he's going to play a big factor, regardless if he's on this team or not. That is one thing that the Bengals need desperately. I think, it's great. You could put all the names on a piece of paper and say they should be X, Y, and Z. But who's going to take charge? Who's going to take reign? And Dexter Lawrence, he has his credibility. He can perform right there on the field, which I think that we can definitely take away from. And I think we still expect a lot from him, maybe a resurgence of his career on the playing field. But I'm also expecting him to take a role, if he's not on the field, to talk to these young guys, to educate them, to show them, that this way, to teach them tough love in a sense, because that's how they're going to develop and they're going to form. I think Dexter Lawrence, regardless if he's on the field or not, he's going to play a key, probably the number one value to the success of the Bengals defense. If these young people, these young players, are capable of taking something away from what Dexter Lawrence provides and implement it onto the field, that's how we're going to value and get the most out of his contract. But I think it's just something to highlight, understanding his role as a Bengals, as a defensive player, moving forward and heading into this season. All right, that conversation happens with football all the time. It's now happening with the Cincinnati Bengals as we head into the Hall of Fame nominees for 2026. The nominees have been added. We have some newcomers, according to Fox 19 now. You can read this article, but announces the new Ring of Honor nominees for the Cincinnati Bengals. This year, they are adding Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap, A.J. Green, Leon Hall, Andrew Whitworth to the mix, where along with the already former players that's been in there compared to last year. Jim Breach, James Brooks, Chris Collinsworth, David Fulcher, Max Montoya, Bob Trumpy, Reggie Williams. And so that this class is filled up. There's 12 ballots, a person on this ballot. Members, where did I read this? Bengals, is it what? The class. So this year, the class again will feature 2 inductees, with the last one with at least one of the inductees being from the original ballot. So you could have Jim Breach, James Brooks, Chris Collinsworth, David Fulcher, Max Montoya, Bob Trumpy, or Reggie Williams, along with either another name that I just mentioned or one of the new additions. So next year, the team will be shifting to a single person induction beginning in 27. The Ring of Honor is a special tradition for fans, season ticket members, and Bengals alumni to add a Ring of Honor's prestige and significance. They felt this evolution after its fifth season was appropriate, thoughtful, and positive move. Bengals Director of Strategy and Engagement, Elizabeth Blackburn, mentioned that they congratulate and look forward to recognizing all of their ballots nominees, which is a meaningful recognition from the franchise through the voting process. And they hope to see a lot of the dialogue and a lot of votes on the way heading into this year. Votes will, for season ticket members, open June 1st and will end June 12th. The Ring of Honor and this year's inductees will be announced around the start of training camp in July. It's more on the article, but man, Bengals do have a lot of great talent that I could just name. I say Chris Collinsworth, David Fulcher, just two top guys that come to mind that's already on the ballot. You also have the new additions. I mean, Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap is definitely someone on that list. How can you not? I almost feel like either Andrew Whitworth or AJ Green instantly becomes a number one vote, and I kind of hope that wish that there was three spots open because I would honestly do Chris Collinsworth, do Andrew Whitworth, and AJ Green as my top three. So it's going to be a very difficult decision because one of the picks has to be from the original ballot. And for me, there's only two guys in David Fulcher or Chris Collinsworth. Now, given those are the only two guys I really recognize out of that list, and maybe that's my mistake, but then you have some top tier names. You know the homegrown of AJ Green. You know the homegrown of Andrew Whitworth. You know Carlos Dunlap and what he's done in recent years. So how can you just not vote for them? So it's going to be very interesting. It's very exciting. But votes begin for season ticket members beginning June 1st, which is next Monday. All right, in other Cincinnati conversation news, there's been ongoing development about talks of having the NFL draft in 2029 hosted in the Queen City. New updates and reports coming from Sports Illustrated, written by Russell Heltman yesterday, states that the city of Cincinnati is officially making a push to host the 2029 NFL draft. On Tuesday, the Inquirer reported on Tuesday, that the city is in ongoing conversations with the NFL to bring the event to the Queen City. Cincinnati Regional Sports Commission Director Ben Huffman noted that his organization and the Bengals are in ongoing conversation with the NFL to bring the event and hundreds of thousands of spectators here. The article stated that we believe we be a great host and we've told them we're interested. He said on May 21st, Huffman clarified that they submitted a letter in interest to the NFL, but there has been no formal proposal bid just yet. Now, in 2020, the state of Ohio has hosted just one NFL draft ever in 2021, in Cleveland. The weekend would bring plenty of great media exposure to the region. A former bid has not officially been made, but the city is turning its wheels of that direction. The NFL typically picks host for the draft 2 years in advance, and it's just did this past weekend by awarding the 2028 event to Minneapolis. Earlier this month, the Sports Business Journal reported that Cincinnati has been inside track to host the 2029 season. Now, just think about this. Cincinnati brings in the NFL draft. We're not going to get a Super Bowl. So why not? Why not the draft? Really? Right? Kick things off. I so maybe my opinion will change over the years. But I feel like there's a big obligation to host the draft when it comes to finding its location. There's a big emphasis on the team that the city is hosting it in. Now I'm going to be just frank with you. I think that the NFL draft should be hosted in one spot. That spot should either be out there on the East Coast, sure, somewhere be out there. Lucas Oil State has been relevant to a lot of events. So Lucas Oil Stadium. Okay. I think it would be a great exposure for Cincinnati that we haven't had in quite some time. The last time I remember a special event happening in Cincinnati was about a decade ago where we hosted the All-Star game. And so it's either hosting another All-Star game, getting a Super Bowl, getting a NFL draft, or even something just different. I don't think that we're on location for a FIFA World Cup match this year. I haven't really looked into it. I doubt it. But something that would draw attention to Cincinnati. Maybe WWE has a SummerSlam at Paycor Stadium. Wouldn't that be nice to see? Or we would see some sort of event happen somewhere, TQL or something like that. So yeah, I'm all opposed for it. It brings recognition. I just hope that when we do, players, our teams are playing, good in hindsight. All right, we're gonna move on over to baseball here. The Cincinnati Reds took the series, beating the New York Mets. Final score 7-2. They put up 15 runs, and Chase Burns had another great outing as he moves to 7-1. He went 5 1/3 of an inning last night, giving up 4 hits, 2 ones, walked 2 batters, and struck out 8. He allowed 1 home run as the bullpen kind of was able to close out the ball game. And the important thing is that the Reds had an early lead against these Mets. So, you know, I feel like in a situation, if the Reds are able to get out to an early lead, 4 runs or more, and be able to build that confidence, not only for our starting pitchers to have themselves a good outing, understanding that they could give up a run or two and it's not going to hurt us, turn it over to our bullpen so that they could have feed off of that, I feel like is the best thing for this organization. They've took the series over the Mets. They're going to go for the sweep tonight. They're on a travel day tomorrow, and they're coming back home to Great American Ballpark to open up 6 games against Atlanta and 6 games against Kansas City. Yesterday's success didn't come with the long ball. Back on Monday, Blade and Stevenson, they all went yard, right? Last night, Ellie De La Cruz, Sal Stewart, Gino Suarez, Dane Myers, and Tyler Stevenson all got 2 hits to their record. JJ Bleday had 3 hits. So the ball was flying. The ball was being made contact, and, it got me thinking. I understand, and I'm not trying to be contrary to this statement, but we look at the Reds and we judge the Reds as individual players. We look at Ellie De La Cruz's stats and say, is he playing good or is he not? I feel like we look at Ellie De La Cruz and we highlight his strikeouts and we highlight how many bases he's stolen. And based off of that, we decide, well, is he performing at his expectation or not? Matt McClain had this phenomenal preseason spring training earlier this year, and now there's that expectation of, well, he needs to bring that over to this year. We picked up Gino Suarez to hit 50 home runs this season, and he's nowhere near that. He's nowhere on the pace to that. So my point I'm trying to make is that we sit here as analysts, as people to judge and to talk about the Cincinnati Reds, and we break down individual performance and we blame X, Y, and Z when baseball is also a team performance. Last night, we performed as a team when we put up 15 hits. Those 15 hits gave everybody the opportunity of scoring in runs, putting guys in scoring position to add to our insurance run to our lead. It wasn't judged off of the long ball. It wasn't judged off of how our bullpen did. It was done as a unit. And sometimes we need to step back and to judge this team overall. Now, granted, overall as a unit, their batting average is, down in the 220s, and that's where we need to focus on as a collective unit. But these Reds, let me remind you, are not the Dodgers. These Reds are not the Yankees. If we're going to win ball games, we can't depend on 2 to 3 guys hitting 29 home runs, stealing 40 bases, and so on. We can't focus on just Tyler Stevenson calling balls and strikes and challenging plays. We can't just depend on Chase Burns coming out every 5 days to pitch 6 innings. It's going to be a collective unit. And where a moment of the season that somebody's not going to perform to standards, it's where we as a collective unit back that up. And how do we back that up? That means if Gino Suarez is in a slump, Sal Stewart picks up the pace. If Nathaniel Lowe is in a slump, you have J.J. Bleday or Will Benson pick up the pace as a lefty. It's supporting each other. Okay, this is one big happy relationship between a husband and wife. Everybody has flaws. Everybody has a skill level. That's why you're on this team. Let's highlight that skill level, and that's how we're going to win games. Terry Francona did not take the Cleveland Guardians to the World Series based upon the home runs he did, or the home runs and the stolen bases. He didn't go to the World Series based off of 2, maybe 3 players. It was a collective unit. It was fundamental baseball, and it was executed properly. And that's what's keeping this Reds team alive. And let's talk about Chase Burns for a second, because this was something that was talked about during last night's game by Jeff Brantley. I want to run Chase Burns up there in the nominations for this year's NL Cy Young Award. He's been lights out. He's been impressive. He's been fulfilled. It's fun to watch him. He's 7-1, and this is a pitcher that since the start of the season that he didn't come in with a lot of expectations, but he performed, and he is performing. But the big conversation that lingers with Chase Burns is how far are they going to push him? With the amount of success Chase Burns is having, I honestly ask you, why do we lay off the gas pedal? But earlier this year, it was noted that Chase Burns is going to be on an inning limit. He's been a huge impact on the beginning of this season. I get worried that if we shut him down this summer or any point of this season, even if that means we shut him down during the All-Star break and pick back up in September, we are going to miss an opportunity with him helping us get to the postseason. There's a part of me that says, all right, Chase Burns is kind of filling in as that Hunter Green role, that ace pitcher in that rotation. Andrew Abbott's starting to find his consistency, which is much appreciated. But you kind of hope that Chase Burns could let out until Hunter Green returns in July. Hunter Green picks up where Chase Burns is left off at. And come towards the end of September, when we're contending, bring Chase Burns back and let him be impactful heading into the postseason if we're still contenders. But that's a lot of hope we got to give among 2 to 3 players. So I'm going to say enjoy it. I think for personally for me, and I understand injury risk, and I don't want to put him in the position where he's in, he gets hurt, because I've seen Brandon Williamson this year. I've seen Rhett Lauder this year, two guys coming off of injuries, getting asked to fill in some big shoes, and they kind of paid the price for it. I hope that Chase Burns continues, and this success continues, but it's going to be something that we want to pay attention closely to moving forward and see how the Reds utilize him. And it's kind of hard. It's the same thing about Ellie De La Cruz in comparison. You kind of need him every day in that lineup. You need Suarez every day in that lineup. I understand we want to give these guys days off, but how can we give these guys days off if we depend on them so much to be in that lineup? So that's something to think about heading into as we head into June, as we head into the midst of the season. I think Chase Burns is about like 70 innings already. I think he's about decked out for another 75. So if at this rate he's going, another 2.5 months. So that'll give you until the end of July, maybe the beginning of August, on his outings, and then shut him down for the summer. Hunter Green comes back, Rhett Lauder comes back and finds his groove, and everyone steps up. Game 3 tonight, 7:15. Reds 29 and 25. They moved up to third place in the NL Central. They take on the Mets, 22 and 33. Left-handed pitcher Andrew Abbott will be on the mound. He's 4-2 with a 3.97 ERA. Last pitched on Wednesday against the Phillies. He went 5 1/3 of an inning, giving up 3 hits, 1 run, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts. Goes up against right-handed pitcher Hausker Brazoban, who's 3-1, 1.73 ERA. He had a bullpen outing where he pitched 2/3 of an inning back on Sunday, gave up a hit, no runs, no walks, and no strikeouts. So is this kind of a bullpen day for the Mets? And as we go for the sweep. All right, let's take a look at the National League Central. Chicago Cubs lose to the Pittsburgh Pirates with the final score of 1-12. That is 10 consecutive games the Chicago Cubs have now lost. history in the making. We're only in the month of May. This is their first 10 straight loss in a row this season. They have now dropped to, I believe, 29 and 24, 29 and 26, maybe. And they are now in last place of the division. So, hindsight, the beginning of this season or the beginning of the month, the Cubs are in first place. They're on this dominant path. They're beating every team. They swept the Cubs. Now, at the end of the month, they're down at the bottom of the division. The last time the Cubs have lost 10 straight games was back in June of 2022, just to give you that hindsight there. They also joined the 2017 Dodgers as the only team in the American League National League history with two 10-game winning streaks and one 10-game losing streak in the same season. Probably not something you want to be proud of saying, but it is. So they ended up losing. They have a 4-game series with the Mets. They play tonight at 6:40. Yesterday, the Milwaukee Brewers shut out the St. Louis Cardinals 6-0. And apparently, let me paint you this narrative here. Abner Uribe, a self-described high intensity right-hander with a fastball to match, was pitching in the 6-run lead when he worked around a 2-out walk and a single by getting called strike 3 against Alex Burleson. Right? This was against the Cardinals last night. Uribe pounded his chest after the strikeout, pointed to the sky, and turned to the Cardinals dugout and gestured several times in a way Milwaukee manager Pat Murphy later described as unacceptable. Abner Uribe strikes out Alex Burleson, and I'm going to use professional wrestling terms, the Degeneration X gesture that they made, all those times. Uribe made towards the dugout of the Cardinals. Now, a little bit of extra narrative in this is that Alex Burleson challenged the play. It was upheld. It was a strike. And he still did this scene anyways. Reliever Uribe apologizes to everybody but the St. Louis Cardinals on Tuesday after making a lewd gesture towards the visitors' dugout in the 8th inning of the Milwaukee 6-0 win at American Family Field. Pat Murphy said it's just unacceptable. He didn't know what was over him. He's been an emotional guy, he claims, but that kind of thing is just not how we do things. And he was embarrassed by it. And you know what? Pat Murphy, Milwaukee should be embarrassed by it. I'm all opposed to the taunting, but this is where the boundary is set. I'm opposed to the celebration, the home run celebration, the around the bases celebration, the strikeout celebration. And I get it. A lot of guys are very emotional. We just heard about the story with PCA against the White Sox the other week. Maybe these emotions get the best of you, and I get it. It's tough, but I get it. But still, there's incidents like this where it becomes very borderline. You cross the line, And so I believe that Uribe crossed the line. I'm going to be honest with you. I think that there is a bigger a rise that needs to be attention, needs to draw attention to this scene. Um, I really don't. This is something I can't support. I can't oppose to. Uribe said, I don't think it's professional for their manager to be making signs towards our dugout saying that he's going to be hitting guys. There's an event that occurred during practice today, too. I don't think that's right. I have my teammates back always, and I get that. I think that's wonderful that, hey, things heat up, but these are narratives that are not discussed during the game. They were not elaborate during the game, but still, on a professional level, there should be a way that all this comes at ease. Game 3 of this 3-game series will begin at 1:40 this afternoon between the Cardinals and Milwaukee. I'm going to be interested to tune in to see if there's anything more that falls off of that since then. But I don't know. This is kind of just something that doesn't really draw much of my eyes here. I'm not really a big fan of that. I really feel like there should be more of an internal punishment from the Brewers organization upholding him and his accountability. I get it. You get emotional with the game, but come to the impact of lure gestures should not be taken opposed. Other great news for the Reds, though. Hunter Green made his first bullpen series a session since his elbow surgery yesterday, which is great news. Still on the path of returning into July at some point, possibly August. So, with baby Chase Burns being on limitations, uh, we can see Hunter Green make an adequate start here later this summer. All right, let's talk about the NBA playoffs update here yesterday. The Oklahoma City Thunder beat the San Antonio Spurs 127 to 114. Final scores: the Thunders are out 3-2 in their lead, and they're the only game available in the NBA Conference Championships. Their next game comes up on Thursday, tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Available on NBC. They'll be in San Antonio, Texas. Also in the NHL playoffs, the Golden Knights swept a 4-0 best out of 7 series against the Colorado Avalanche, beating them last night 2-1 was the final score. Tonight, you go check out on TNT at 8 p.m. the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the Montreal Canadiens. The Hurricanes lead the series 2-1 as game 4 is among us. For more information, check out cbssports.com. All right, WWE Raw was back on Monday. We kind of got sidetracked in conversations from Saturday night main event and all the sports kind of catching up over the week. And I want to spiel a little bit of what's happened over on Raw last Monday. Well, we knew that Logan Paul is out with a torn tricep. Austin Theory was informed by Paul Heyman that Braun Breaker will be replacing Logan Paul for now, defending those tag team titles. Well, Austin Theory took upon himself to attack Joe Hendry after Joe Hendry continues his performance in the ring on Monday, calling out to fire Logan Paul. LA Knight promotes the King and Queen of the Ring tournament, which will begin next Monday following the results of Clash in Italy. This will all lead up to the Saudi Arabia series coming your way in the end of June. Rey Mysterio ends up defeating Rusev back on Monday, who now has earned his title shot. Earlier over the weekend, Rey Mysterio was announced as AAA's general manager, who got a lot of reaction from his son, Dominic Mysterio, who did not like that. Also, Obafemi sends a message to Paul Heyman, says to Paul Heyman that the first time that Obafemi faced Brock, it was to beat him and conquer the beast. Now, things have gotten personal as this Sunday, Oba looks to officially finish Brock Lesnar. And last but not least, Roman Reigns demands acknowledgement. Jacob is if not, there's going to be a new head of the table. And that was a brief recap on Monday Night Raw. So the two segments that I really highlighted out here when it came to when it came to Monday Night Raw earlier this week was Obafemi and Brock Lesnar statement, and then also I highlighted the notion of the tribal combat, which is expected to watch this weekend. So this is where you ask yourself, does Brock Lesnar need a win, or does Obafemi need a win? And if Obafemi, this is where I'm at a bypass here. Obafemi not just beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. He beat him and was not fazed by him. You can't tell me Brock Lesnar was not ready for Obafemi. He experienced the wrath of Obafemi leading up to WrestleMania. How can you not have Obafemi repeat himself again? It doesn't just stop there. So if you say Obafemi wins on Sunday, Oba's not out just to beat Brock again. He's out to officially finish Brock, which means that if Brock didn't officially retire at WrestleMania, he would be officially retiring at Clash of Champions. If that doesn't happen, you go against everything that was built up between January 1st and this coming up Sunday, building Obafemi. Now, I get it. Oba doesn't really have any top-tier challengers yet. But you kind of create this unbreakable force. And if Brock Lesnar wins, you set Obafemi back. Now, look, Obafemi hasn't had a near perfect career in the WWE from his debut to even his early days in NXT. And let's go back to when Cody Rhodes and Obafemi fought each other. It was an actual brawl. So I get it. But I still believe that we have built Obafemi up high just to, if Brock wins, you tear him down again. Now, maybe you have to tear him down, so you paint him as invincible, so when he goes up to other challengers, it becomes more of a competition. Maybe the WWE has painted him so high where he's untouchable, he's unbeatable, and this is where Brock Lesnar comes back in. Also, the big question now is there change presented heading into the family? And I say that because, Jacob Fatu acknowledged Roman Reigns' success. He acknowledged his placement and everything that he's done. He's admitted that if it wasn't for what Roman Reigns has done over the last 10 years, their family would not be at the top of the wrestling company today. But he also stands ground saying that he's not the only one at the top of that table. Like I mentioned, back at Backlash, Jacob Fatu gave a true test, was one of the first family member to give Roman Reigns a true battle in fear that he may not be as good as he says he is. Jacob Fatu has presented himself as someone who is equal or is better than Roman Reigns. I feel a shift in a sense that we would be seeing a change of head of table. I don't know what the elaborate plan is. I don't know how far it goes. It's okay that Roman Reigns is not at the head of the table anymore. It happens. It happens to the best of everybody. But I feel like now there is a surgence importance that this happens now to keep everything relevant. Roman Reigns wins. What's next for Jacob Fatu? What's next for his career? Everything that we built over the last 2 months, he goes right back down where he is probably just as seen as Solo Sikoa. WWE has an opportunity to make something very special, to twist the narrative of this story that has been told piece by piece in chapters. So will the WWE jump on that, or will they pass on it? All right, developing stories continue. As this weekend we will have a mask versus mask match between El Grande Americano and an original El Grande Americano. Now, it has been reported that El Grande Americano and the original El Grande Americano is played by Chad Gable and Ludwig Kaiser, and it's been an ongoing feud that you could check out this weekend. Well, there's more stories to the recent arrest from Ludwig Kaiser for the simple battery. Kaiser is moving forward with his commitments for both WWE and AAA following his arrest last month. And there are those in the company who expect the situation to ultimately be resolved by itself. Kaiser, whose real name is Marcel Barthel, was charged with simple battery out of Florida after an alleged incident inside his apartment complex. The victim in this case claims that Barthel threw multiple punches and knocked him into the ground. This apparently happened after an elevator ride in which the victim made a comment about Barthel and an unidentified woman in the official police report being uncontrollably intimate with each other. Days after he turned himself into the police, another story surfaced online about what happened that night between Barthel and the alleged victim. And the Sean Rose Sapp of Fightful Select has since tried to verify the story's authenticity. He says that Fightful Select has spoken with a number of sources within the company that believes the story about him defending himself, and Andrea Barzarte from this victim comments was planted within the WWE. According to Sapp's report, there was an unfamiliar number that reached out to several members of the wrestling media with the story, as opposed to Kaiser or Andrea themselves or a member of the WWE team. Okay. Words also surfaced this past Monday that the WWE had no intentions of disciplining Barthel at this time. Sapp was able to uh, corroborate that report. Those spoke to in WWE also expect that the charges will eventually be dismissed based on the information they've received. Kaiser does not have any heat within the company among those that we spoke to. WWE has filed in with the details by the night of the arrest. So the article continues. It gets into the upcoming match, where it's going to be a mask versus a mask versus mask at the AAA Noche de los Grandes coming up this weekend, May 30th. Uh, the intel of the report is that he is available, expected to be available to compete. Therefore, he's able to travel due to his work internally and externally. This is something that we can probably go to links at tomorrow, but that is just a basic update, and it's just important to understand that with how big his role right now in the storyline of AAA and of the WWE. It's also important that we highlight and showcase details of this case, so we understand through and through whether or not maybe this alters the decision for the WWE. But that is all the time we have for you guys today. We will be back again tomorrow from 12 to 1. We appreciate your support. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Have those notifications on so you don't miss a single episode. Please also follow us on our Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram page. You can also download and listen to this episode on your audio podcast, wherever you get your podcast station needs at. We will be on there at the TNC Sports Talk. Well, appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you guys for tuning in to the TNC Sports Talk. My name is Justin, and you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.